I was an accounting student, and I was a gentleman C accounting student. The only thing that made me an accounting major was my younger brother, who actually was a good accounting student, and Harry Finkelman. Without those two guys, I wouldn't be here today. But I haven't done bad from a very basic beginning, because when I was here in the business department, there were two people, Cloyd Armbruster and Harry Finkelman. And if you could get through the finance classes with Cloyd Armbruster and get into the accounting stuff, you were okay. What happens is, for me, you're in a place where you got to make a decision. And the decision is really simple. What do you want? If you're comfortable with what you're doing here, with the jobs that are here, with the people you work with the communities, then that's great. But if you ever sit and go, golly gee, I wonder what the other guy's doing. I wonder how challenging it is. How far can I go? What can I do? Then you might want to consider a few other things. I was just telling Kendra here, I now am doing more. I'll be 69 years old next June. I do now more than I ever did. I know more now. I've got a lot of scars. I've got gray hairs. I've been in the trenches. But I've done everything with your hands, tactile, that you can do. You want to do payroll? I can do payroll. You want to put in an accounting module? I can put in an accounting module. You want to do all the modules, the inventory, accounts receivable, accounts payable, billing? I can do that. Mass 90, barcode. I've done all that the hard way because I had to learn it to do it. So over the years, in the back of my mind, I always knew that every time I had an entry, I had two gods to serve. One god was the books, and the other one was the tax return. So luckily for me, when I was trying to do the books, I'd always go, well, what's the tax implication for that? And as a matter of fact, Harry Finkelman and I was always good in his tax classes because I liked it. It was theoretical. The accounting stuff, oh gosh, debits and credits, please, fall right to sleep. Who pays attention to that stuff? Bookkeepers, boring. But when you had to take those transactions and put them on a tax return for money, that's different, because now you're in the throne room. And it depends on what size throne room you want to be in. That's kind of a quick overview. But let's back up. Let's back up to Bob Bailey, 1966, accounting major, trying to figure out what to do and what's out there. But what's out there is a lot of accounting jobs, but not necessarily here. So I really couldn't get a job, to tell you the truth, the job that I wanted. I wanted to go to graduate school, Indiana University, some of these big schools, couldn't get in. Luckily for me, Dr. Joseph also, University of Missouri, had a one-year program just started, national program. All you had to do was to make a score, the GRE score, I don't even forget what it was, 473 or something. And you had to go to Charleston to take it. They wouldn't look at your background, wouldn't look at your grades, they didn't care about the social, they just wanted you to hit that number. I spiffied up, read the newspaper, read my books, took the score, took the exam, made it, and went to graduate school at the University of Missouri. Got out 39 hours, competed with students, Cornell, Brown, Ivy League schools who all wanted to go there, because at the time University of Missouri had one of the best accounting programs in the country. I think they're still ranked in the top 20 or 25, but they have an excellent accounting program. And if you graduate from Missouri, you can get a job anywhere in the country. And I did okay. Why? Well, I was married. I actually bought books. I went to class. What a concept. Passed the test. Wow, isn't that different? Unlike Concord, where I was, I like to tell the story that my brother and I went to Concord together, and we'd come home and she'd go, well, how'd you do, Bobby? I go, I was on the dean's list. And then she would go, which one? Because the dean kept several lists at that time. But in any event, so that's what happened to me. And then from there, I could interview with anybody in the country, and I did. I interviewed to go to the West Coast, to work with the oil companies, Oklahoma, come back to the East Coast. And I decided I wanted to come back, and we came back to Maryland, came back to Baltimore. So at the time I said, well, I want to live on the ocean because I'm a visionary guy. Why not live on the most eastern tip of the Atlantic Ocean there in Maryland? And you look at the map and there's a little place called Sparrows Point. So I got there, accepted a job with Haskins & Sells. I go in and we drive to Sparrows Point. And when you approach there, there's a big sign that says Bethlehem Steel. It's a deep water port. Bethlehem Steel was there a few generations before me, so I had to take a second place to live. But in any event, I got there. My younger brother, who was a real accounting student, graduated from Concord, got accepted for a special scholarship, which we're now learning more about, for accounting students in the West Virginia, Pennsylvania area who had the brains and the grades but didn't have the money. And we didn't have any money. Who's going to go to University of Pennsylvania from West Virginia? Not us. He got the scholarship. Harry Finkelman helped him with it. He got it. He went to the University of Pennsylvania. He graduated. When he graduated, he accepted a job with Ernst & Young in Richmond. I accepted a job with Haskins & Sells in Baltimore. They sent us both to New York at the same time. I even forget the year. So we were there together doing this three-week special rookie accounting stuff. So we had done pretty good. But Larry was a special student because Larry, after working with Ernst & Young, ended up teaching at VCU. He went to Temple. At the time, he was married with a young daughter. And then the second child came a boy. And then he started teaching at Temple. And then he went to talk, and I think the gentleman's name is Wixon, Dr. Wixon. And Dr. Wixon is the leading accounting theoretician in the country. To get in the University of Pennsylvania's accounting PhD program, he invites you. You don't apply. Larry applied in the late 60s and was accepted. I think there were only like a half a dozen students in the program at that time. So Larry got in, continued teaching, graduated in 2 years, and had his PhD. Went back and taught and started critiquing articles, accounting articles, written by other authors, and he would critique them for the state AICPA Society, particularly statistics, because that's what Larry liked, statistical auditing. After that, he met a gentleman by the name of Miller. Miller at that time, and still until his death, wrote and came up with the title, The Gap Guide and the Gas Guide. If you go into any accounting or tax or law office in this country today, you'll see the Gap Guide and the Gas Guide. Miller's claim to fame is he came up with the title. He didn't like to write. So he was looking for a young, hungry author who could do the technical stuff and make the articles come to life and da-da-da-da-da. So he found Larry. So Larry did the writing after a couple of years. Not that Miller didn't do all the writing early on, but Miller got tired because he had other interests. But Larry ended up writing. After Miller died, Larry ended up authoring these books, The Gap Guide, The Gas Guide. He also wrote 2 other books which I didn't bring with me. I'm not saying he was the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he was one of the leading writers in the accounting field for a good 10, 12 years at his peak. One of the top 10 or 15 authors in the country. That's not bad from a little guy from Bluefield, West Virginia, who worked at the Dairy Queen, and I had a paper route, and we both came to Concord. And we got out of Concord and said, you know, I think I'd like to do something else. So that's kind of the overview. That's what you can do if you want to. It's out there. I'm going to be retiring in a couple of years. I'll be 69 next June. For the last year and a half, I've been dealing on one particular case with 2 attorneys in New York. One attorney bills out $1,000 an hour. The lady bills out $800 an hour. I don't beat them. I try to stay up with them, but I don't play hell in round hills. When they push me, I don't roll over. I can read and I can add. And they're always trying to take a jumbled mess of transactions that are on the books, and what do they want to do with them? Stick them inside the Internal Revenue Code because it fits right there. I don't think so. Hold on a second, Jack. Let's pull this stuff out, unwind it, and read the code, look at the facts, look at the documentation to find out, is Uncle Sam protected? Because that's really what I do. I protect Uncle Sam's soft underbelly. And I don't do peanuts. I'm not a small bean counter. I count big beans. I do LMSB. I do international. I work overseas. I spent a lot of time in London 2 years ago. So I feel pretty good. I can compete with these guys. I stay up late at night. I wake up at 3 o'clock every morning and go, here's what I did wrong, here's what I did right, here's what I got to do tomorrow. Why? Because that's the only way I can do it, stay up with these guys. But that's kind of a quick overview. Now, back to the Internal Revenue Service. I have 16 years in, maybe almost 17 at the end of this year. But the first 7 years I was there, I didn't want to leave. It was the greatest job I ever had. I've always felt like that. The Internal Revenue Agent's job, I've always felt, and there's certain people within the IRS feel the same way, it's the crown jewel of the Internal Revenue Service. That's the point of contact that you have with some of the largest organizations in the world that are filing tax returns. And you're facing them one-on-one. And it's not unusual for me to be in a meeting to start off a tax audit with the Director of Taxation Domestic, the International Tax Director, the tax partner, and I'm talking about Big Four CPA firms. And now there's a new specialty they've introduced, the Director of Controversial Tax Issues. Well, translated, that means he's a bulldog. He's there to jump me. He probably doesn't know anything about the issue, but he's confrontational, which I have a problem with because I think the IRS should protect me. They should give me an attorney of my selection and let me take my attorney out and let these two guys go. But that's another story. But back to the job. The IRS, when I was first there for the first 7 years, was basically me, a revenue agent, a pencil and adding machine, and a spreadsheet, and the code. Okay, what did you take from Concord that helped you the most? Well, what I learned at Concord is one thing. When you're principles of accounting, you can float through that. Everybody gets that, kind of, sort of, except the debits and the credits. It takes you so long to figure that out. But then when you move over at the intermediate, you stop and you look at one thing. You get transactions, and transactions have to be recorded. And most of the time what happens in the private sector, and I've been there, is the people that you work for, the owners, they come in and they throw transactions on your desk. What do you mean? Oh, I fired this guy today. We bought a building over here. I did a piece of land. I'm involuntary conversion. And by the way, I traded in my car. They empty the pockets, put it on the desk and say, can you close the books and have them ready by tomorrow or the next day or the first part of the week? I used to escape. I'm going back to West Virginia. I don't need this stuff. I'll never finish it in time. So what you learn quickly is that your biggest enemy is what? Is the clock. It's the clock is the killer. So what you have to be able to do, and as an intermediate student, the only thing that saved me was I could take the transactions to make the journal entry. Larry was about 3 times as fast as I was, but I'd get it done. And once you get it done and you learn how to do it, if you can take a stack of documents and come up with the journal entries to hit the books, you're going to be okay. If you do it slow, that's okay. If it takes you 3 years to get faster, that's okay. The key thing is you got to want to do it. And if you want to do it and you want to learn how to do it and you'll invest the time to do it, you'll be okay. Because at the end of 3 years, when you're equal to the guy that's twice as fast as you, you may have a tax bent that he doesn't have. And that's what I always like, because I always knew, I call them messy diapers. You see this movie now with Kirk Douglas, Wall Street and greed and all that, and the famous line in is there, oh, remember, you can make money, you know what happens to a bear on Wall Street? They make money. Bulls make money on Wall Street. But what happens to pigs? Pigs get slaughtered on Wall Street. And that's what I do. I slaughter pigs. I don't fool with the bears because they're going to beat me up, intimidate me, run me off. The bulls, they're twice as fast as I am. I'm looking for the Piggly Wigglies. And they're out there. They live out there. And I can smell them a mile away. And that's what I love about the job. So I was there for 6 years, didn't want to leave. I had 3 sons I wanted to raise, and at that time the Treasury Department, a kind word would be that they were frugal. So they told me I had to wait 18 months to get in line to get a grade to support my family. Not going to happen. Boom, I go, and I didn't want to because I liked the job so much. But what happened was it put me from defense out into playing offense. Junior accountant, do the bank recs, do the general ledger. Do you know what a chart of account is? Can you take a chart of account and go into a business you don't know anything about and set up the business? Can you do it automated? Can you do it manually? Can you produce a set of financial statements up through the footnotes? You better know how to do it, and you better learn how to do it quickly. And to me, I liked it. I was slow, but I liked it. So I got through it, and I got a lot of experience. Fast forward 12, 15 years, I'm getting ready to retire, and I couldn't afford it. The IRS opened up a program. Why would they open up a program after all these years? Because it had a very, I'm not sure what the proper word is, but their hiring levels of revenue agents to deal with the national scope audits had not been aggressive. They hadn't sought out replacements. So they have attrition rate. We have an attrition rate with the IRS that's really bad in all of our disciplines. And as I'll show you in a few moments, the disciplines, we have about 12 or 15 disciplines to hire in. And those are guys that carry a number 2 pencils, revenue agents, revenue officers, CIs, criminal investigators. They carry hot lead. They have a gun. We have attorneys. We have budget people. We have procurement. We have IT people. So we have a lot of disciplines. But what you find out is that there was nobody home. So they invited us to come back in because I was going to retire. And they said, well, what's your background? They said, well, we'll hire you on the site. And they did. Because when I left, I had been a revenue agent. I had worked small cases. I had worked corporations. I had been to district council court with one paralegal and the attorney and with the tax court. I had been wired once with the FBI, and I'd done a little bit on a drug case. So I'd been around. I had a few scars. And in addition to that, I had taught at one time every revenue agent on the street in Washington, D.C. And the last year and a half, I was lead instructor. So when I came back, I was going, this is going to be fun. And it has. I've been there now 7 years. And I volunteer for everything. Why? Because the rest of these bureaucrats are sound asleep. They got another watch on that says in 2 years, 18 months, 4 days, and 6 seconds, I get to retire. Well, good. You go retire. And Bob raised his hand. What do you know about international? Well, I was in Rome, Georgia one weekend. And they go, no, Bailey, seriously. I don't know anything. Would you like to go? I sign up for every class. I've been to some of the best tax classes in the country over the last 6 years. I've been with some of the best young IRS people. These kids are accounting majors, CPAs. They went back and got their MBA at Georgetown. They got their law degree from Georgetown or GW. They're very bright kids. Okay, so they're going to end up running the IRS one of these days. But the troops in the trenches, the guys that are going to be doing really the grunt work, the hard work, the guys like me, they're not there. So I flourished. I do a lot. They ask me to do a lot, and I do it. I take it home. I take it home on the weekend. I know the government's supposed to be 40 hours a week, and and you're home. That's true. But if you want to get ahead and do something, you're going to have to put in more than 40. If you want to. If you don't want to, you can do the 40 and go home. You got the greatest fringe package of any employer in the country. The IRS now goes on the national TV, not TV, they go on the internet now and promote the agency as one of the top, I think, 20 agencies for employment. For people coming out of college, going to work in the U.S. at the federal agencies, you got to consider the IRS. Now, what's the downside? Well, here's the downside. The downside is, first of all, I'm not here as a recruiter. I cannot discuss with you personally a job with the IRS. Why? Because I'm a volunteer recruiter for the recruiting cadre. There'll be a piece of paper handed out, and at the bottom of it, it's so hot off the press that the lady's name on it, I don't even know. She just got here. But she's the lady who will discuss employment with you. So I'm only here to discuss what I do. I really can't discuss the other jobs because I'm not qualified to, but I can give you brochures to read on the other jobs. And you can touch base with her and get on the web and find out more about them. But that's kind of the down in 20 minutes, here's where I'm coming from. So I'm kind of excited about it because I like it. So if you don't like it, that's okay. But just understand, you're at the juncture now, right now. You'll never be in this room again. You'll never have an access to an old curmudgeon like me. You'll never see this is what you're going to end up 25 years from now. And you got a decision to make. And this is where it gets serious. Because before now, you didn't have a decision. Well, you're in junior high school, you're in high school, you're in college, you're going to football games. Oh, gosh, no decisions. It's crunch time, kids. You got to make a decision. You make an easy one, that's okay. You want to stay here, you want to teach, that's great. But if you kind of, look out the window and you hear the wind blow and you go, golly gee, I wonder what those guys, you hear those people over there, I wonder what they're doing. And that's me. That's kind of the wanderlust. But you can go out there and you can compete. There's nobody better than you. They may be smarter than you. They may be quicker than you. They may be more intellectual than you. But they can't have more heart, and they can't have more determination, and they can't have more capability to learn, because you can learn it. That's my little gist. And guess what's happening? What's coming new to town now? The IT part of this job. Everybody, oh, IT, forget IT. It's a, computer, the laptop and everything. Within the next 5 years, you will see no financial statements prepared without huge assistance and support from an IT system. Has anyone heard of SAP? You know what SAP? They're coming to a theater near you. The Germans are coming. They're here. They've got an accounting system that if you touch one piece of data, hits everything, which is great. Wow. And I saw the guy speak. I was there at the presentation. How much does it cost you to get SAP training? $80,000 a year. That's what it costs you. Why? Because when you get out and you know SAP, you can go become employed with anybody in the country, any of the bigger firms. So there's things that are happening under the undercurrent of all this. The IT, the new SAP companies are going to really not control, but they're going to dominate the accounting profession. It's just the way it is. Larry, as a matter of fact, the last year he taught at Ryder, and he taught his intermediate class in Excel, no manual, everything Excel. The first time it had been done, this was 2003. It's the way you're going to see it. It's coming to a theater near you. Be ready for it. So you've got to have the IT background. What a major. Have an accounting major and an IT minor. And have a double minor, a tax. Let me see. If I were smart, that's what I would have done if it were available. Accounting, IT, and tax. So it's coming. What's the hottest new college coming to West Virginia? What's the hottest new college on the East Coast? University of Pennsylvania? Harvard? Yale? Brown? Nah. Strayer Business School. Strayer Business School? Who are those guys? Strayer Business School is for real. About 20 years ago, another Bailey boy from Princeton by the name of Ron Bailey bought Strayer Business School. And why did he do that? Because he was an IT guy. He begged, borrowed, and stealed, took all his money and his wife, and they bought it. I think they had 4 campuses in Washington area. Fast forward 10, 15 years, they had 17 campuses. And what did he do? He changed the structure so that anybody who came to Strayer, the Strayer Business School, if they wanted to become an IT major, either software emphasis or hardware, he offered the courses. He offered some of the old courses, Cobalt, Fortran, all that legacy architect from the 1970s. But he offered the new stuff too, the cold fusion, the GUI interface stuff, the object-oriented language so that you could program on the screen and actually do a lot. He got that built up to 17 campuses. And then he sold it for a paltry $500 million. Ron's not a member of my immediate family, but he's done good for an Old Bailey boy from Princeton. So what happened to Strayer Business College? It got bought out by a really big firm who wants to go national. It's going national, and it's competing in the states where the old line universities are, and it's doing very well. It just opened a campus in West Virginia. Strayer Business College has the right approach. In business, I'm not talking about the liberal arts and all the other majors that are involved, but in business, they got it right, because they're going to do IT, they're going to do accounting. If you do these big accounting packages and you graduate from Concord, do they care about your accounting knowledge? To a certain extent, yes, but guess what? Those automated accounting systems have what? They have the journal entries. You give them the transactions, they give you the journal entries. Oh, wow. Really? But is it correct? Is that journal entry correct? You better know how to check it. You better know how to take it apart. That's the difference, because these young kids now that are into the SAP and some of the others, there's PeopleSoft and SAP. I won't pick on those guys, but all these guys have their own accounting entries for transactions. But in any event, that's my spiel. I'm rambling on. Questions? Observations? You want to get up and leave? You want to look at the material? What would you like to do? Gosh, you can't all be asleep. When I used to attend these things, I get in the back, like this guy. I like this guy in the back. Because what I do is I put my back up against the wall, and I do one of these I was a professor, and I'd be asleep in 5 minutes. I mean, you know. But I sit up front where you have to listen to all this stuff when you can sleep in the back. But if there are no questions, would you like for me to go over the disciplines that are out there within the IRS on a national basis, so that if you're interested, you could inquire, and you can inquire online? You don't need me. As a matter of fact, all of the hiring now done by the IRS is done by computers. You go out in USA Today, build your job resume, career connectors, and then you go pull out the job and you apply. As a matter of fact, I think the IRS just changed their format. I don't think anybody sees these applications anymore. They electronically review them. Electronically review them and give you your number back for interviews. I never knew that. Yes, ma'am.
What do they offer for marketing majors?
For what?
Marketing majors.
Okay, good question. Marketing. Let's find out. I don't know. Now, yeah, but tell me something about marketing. What exactly do you mean? You taking a product to market? Or you just went into the marketing career? I mean, what are we talking about here?
I was just wondering what the IRS would offer if I had a marketing degree.
If you had a marketing degree. If I were you and I had a marketing degree, there were a couple of areas I would go into. First of all, let me give you a quick brush of what's out there, and then we'll come back to the marketing. Okay? IT specialists, computers, big. You like computers? You want to get a degree in computers? We are actually hiring. I took a computer programmer to a job fair with the IRS, and they hired him on the spot. But that's because I'd known the guy for 8 years, and I knew he was a programmer, and I knew he had a resume for it. Go down to the lower level, computer clerk operator, data entry. They have jobs available for that. Probably don't need a college education. Personnel they have, human resource specialists and assistants. Drop down again. They have file clerks and mail clerks. Drop down, I don't mean to drop down, but a different area, secretaries. They have openings for secretaries. Customer service representative tax examiner. I like that one. That's one people overlook, because that's where you get to meet and greet and also drop in and help out with some tax problems. Tax compliance officers, TCOs. These guys are, TCOs are, if there's money's due the IRS, due Uncle Sam, they get it. So I'll leave that one alone. They have individual taxpayer advisory specialists and case advocates. I don't know much about that one. The one I do know about is economists. We hire economists, and we hire good economists, and we like college degrees with our economists, and we like economist majors. Never thought that. Why would the IRS need an economist? For what? What are we doing with an economist?
Statistics, graphing trends, money flows, things of that nature.
Well, that's true. But we do most of that, and I think we do that in, it's called Human Capital Office. We have a headquarters office that we do some of that. But the economist, I have economists on my case. Why? Because I've got a manufacturer in Northern Virginia that's got 25 plants across the East Coast, and in all the East Coast, they have $10 million worth of assets in every building at different lives. Are those lives correct? Golly gee, everything on this depreciation schedule says they're 3-year lives. Really? 3 years? What's the life of the building? Oh, it's 40. Let's see, the building's going to last 4. The equipment's going to last 3. That means every 3 years you're going to replace everything in this division. So why do they want the short write-off? The short life, because the short life gets them the short write-off. Why do you need an economist? Because he's got the classical education and training to step back and go, wait a second. If you look across the industry, in this industry life, you'll see this equipment historically has this kind of life. So that's why we need economists. Engineers, we have engineers who do similar type things with the economists. The engineers actually maybe do more of the depreciation schedule equipment, and the economists help out on a 482 issue, transfer pricing. Anybody know what transfer pricing is? 482 of the code? Does anybody care? Let me tell you why you would care. You would care if you owned stock in a little company in Germany and they made widgets. And let's say you were a 10% stockholder. And those widgets were sold overseas, but where were they manufactured? Well, they were manufactured in the U.S. In the U.S., when they transferred them back and sold them back to the parent for resale in Europe, let's assume they said, golly gee, it only cost us $10 to make. But if we charge our parent $100, we get to take all the expenses on this tax return. Why? Because the U.S. corporate capital tax rate is 35%. So we bring taxable income down to 0. We ship it over there. They got a high basis, and they sell it, and they don't show any profit in that country. Abusive, Section 482, arm's length transactions between not necessarily related parties, but controlled parties. It's the control. It's not necessarily the stock, direct or indirect. It's the control. So that gets back to the question of why is 482 important? Statistics. Anybody take a statistics class? Did the IRS hire statisticians? They hire them, and they need them. Why? Because we do a lot of monitoring. We do a lot of what-ifs. We do a lot of pattern expenditures. We do a lot of tax gap stuff. How do you accumulate this data and present it and track it and monitor it? All done by statistics and all done by statisticians. A great area. I like statistics. If I'd have been smarter, quicker, faster, that's where I would have been. Appeals officers. We have an appeals officer. What's appeal? Well, if Bob had gone in and audited this little company that's filing a return in this country because they have income in this country, and it would have made an adjustment and the taxpayer agreed, he would have appealed and gone up to the next level before tax court. Well, we have a whole section called appeals officers. And these officers hear the cases, look at the facts, look at the documentation, and make a determination, either agreeing with the IRS or agreeing with the taxpayer. Tax law specialists. We have specialists in the national office who specialize in one code section, maybe even for a career. Yikes. One code section, maybe for a career? Yeah, that happens. Not often, but it happens. Special agents. These are the guys I work with every now and then. These are guys, are CI guys, criminal investigators. We have brochures. They carry the guns. These guys, they go after the bad guys. You know, they do a lot of good work. Problem with the revenue agents is we're good guys. We do a lot of good work. We can't say anything. The contrary to popular belief, we have a pretty, overall the IRS has somewhat of a negative reputation that's not really deserved because we do a lot of stuff, no one ever sees it. You get a lot of stuff in the paper, but we do the right thing a lot of the times. Revenue agent, that's me. That's what I do. That's where I live. Revenue agents do peanuts and they do elephants. If you do peanuts, you audit individuals. If you do elephants, you audit corporations. So that's basically that one. A good discipline to be in, and it's a discipline where there's a need for revenue agents nationwide. We don't have enough revenue agents. We don't have enough accounting students graduating, going out and working as a revenue agent. Revenue officers, the same thing, but these are really office auditors that you go to see at the IRS. Budget analysts. We do a lot of budget analysts for the IRS nationally. Salaries, travel, retirement, you name it, we spend it, we buy it, automobiles, equipment, computers. So we have a huge budget department that works with that. We have contract specialists because the IRS engages in contracts with vendors across the country to buy goods and services. So we have a huge contract specialist division. Operations research, we do a lot of analysis of our cases, of our time, of how long we spend on issues, and we're constantly monitoring the feedback of how we work on those. And then we have management program analysts and assistants. Now back to your question. How does marketing fit into that? For me, if I were a marketing major, I would go into that management program analyst area, 343 and 344, because that would be the starting place for me. If you're looking for anything, it may work out. Anybody else? Any questions? You guys ready to drop off to sleep? You ready for lunch? What's happening here? Tell me something. Here are the brochures. As a matter of fact, these brochures are hot off the press because I've not even seen them. We got lucky the lady who put it together mailed them to Concord, so you guys have got the first stuff. So in front of Harvard and Yale and all those other big guys. And some of this stuff is stuff that I brought. But I don't know if I can go over everything, but if you do anything, and I'm going to make sure one of these sheets is left in the office. Let me take it right now. Take one of these sheets and follow the guideline, because you can do everything on the web if you're interested. You can build your resume, USA Jobs Today, and go looking, but the disciplines are right here for employment. And the contact person for the Mid-Atlantic region is right there. She just came on board. So I've never met the lady. This thing was just printed last week. Yikes. So she's in Annapolis. Now I'm in Washington, D.C., and I've been in Washington, D.C. for the past, I don't know, off and on 20, 30 years. So that's the area that I'm interested in. I do job fair recruitings. Last year I did Georgetown, I did University of Maryland, I did George Washington. So we do all of those, and and I do the corporate mid-level recruiting portion, only as a volunteer, but that's what I do. And we hire people right at job fairs. We hired a statistics major. I was lost in the parking lot at Georgetown. I don't know where these buildings are. Come on, I'm from West Virginia. And these two young things had these little brochures, I'm going to the job fair. And I said, can I follow you guys to the job fair, please? Oh, yeah. And then they would barely speak to me. They said, well, what are you doing there? I said, well, I'm one of the recruiters. Oh, you're one of the recruiters? Well, here, we'll take you. Would you like something to drink, something, hot coffee? I was their newest best friend. One of those young ladies got hired in 2 weeks because it just so happened that the HCO officer for the national office that has a statistics area had just lost 2 people, so they were looking to replace one. She gave him her resume, she talked to him, she went online, filled the paperwork out. 2 weeks later, they hired her. She was a good student. I'm not saying this was a random bumping into people. She was an excellent student. She had a high GPA. She was career oriented, but I mean, that's the way stuff happens at these job fairs. That's why I've been telling Kendra, you guys have got to go to some of this stuff. You got to be aware of it. And you might have to leave Athens and Concord and Charleston and Beckley to go see it. It ain't around here. Sorry. So that's kind of the Bob Bailey overview of the IRS and our little careers in the big world out there. All right, guys, what do you want to do? Questions? Pick my brain. Take your best shot.
What are some of the best resources that I could purchase or look at or go to, like a convention or something, that would keep me up to par with real life scenarios that have to deal with accounting or the IRS or something of that nature?
Are you talking about interview mentoring?
Anything.
Like when you go for an interview, how should you prepare yourself for an interview? That's really that's one of the things you're asking me. Mm-hmm. Okay, there are professional firms out there that do this, help you with your resume, help you with your interview, how you should handle yourself in interviews. And as a matter of fact, with the IRS, I just went through a mentoring process with someone else. And I was mentored at a certain level. I mean, things that I never even, wouldn't have considered that I thought were basic 101 stuff, people don't do on an initial interview. Can I give you the website? No, I can't give you the website. But I'll find something and get back to her. And I don't know, it may not be IRS specific, but it'll be federal agencies specific. Or if I can't, there's got to be something in the private sector. But the biggest thing to do is you got to want to get out there. And if you have to, the biggest tool you guys have got is you've got the internet, you've got the laptops. Man, it's all out there because everything now is laptops. As I say, we don't see people anymore for interviews. I have problems with that. I like to see the guy I'm hiring, wouldn't you? Call me crazy. I just got hired. I just got a job. Lady called me up and goes, "We'll see you October 25th. I haven't met the lady. I went, "Hello? Is this who I think it is?" She goes, "Yes." She says, "I'll see you." So things are, changes. Change. You got to be fluid. You got to be ready to change. What else can I tell you? What else do you need to know? Those grades. Let's talk about the grades. You got to get that GPA up. Why? Because in this economy, what is the first thing the IRS do? What do? The guys give me the resume at the job fair. I go, I'm not going to take it. Give me your GPA. Why? Well, let me see. In a recession where the country's going down the tubes and we have thousands of people looking for jobs, who do you think that I would want to talk to? The first worst 100 students or the first best 100 students? I mean, it's just, stuff that's kind of natural, guys. So work on that GPA, something I never paid attention to. Big mistake. I was lucky to get into graduate school. Lucky. But had I been smarter and studied like my younger brother, I would have had the GPA and I could have gone to Indiana University, which I was dying to go to. And they took my resume and threw it out the window, made a paper airplane out of it. For good reason. Yes, sir. Any questions? All right. I'll stop lecturing you guys. I don't think I can tell you anymore. For the few minutes that's remaining, you want to come forward and get the brochures. They're all here to take a look at them, take them back with you. Thank you very much for your patience.
Just real quick before you go, I'd like, Mr. Bailey, thank you so much for coming. And we have a little token here. And just to kind of piggyback on what he was saying, something you all might, if you haven't already heard, don't forget on Friday, the Career Services, who's also a wealth of information for interviewing, the Career Symposium, or the Alumni Symposium is Friday. And we have quite a list of alumni like Mr. Bailey. You're not going to be at that one, unfortunately, that can provide you with a lot of this information. So I encourage you all to look at some of the classes. I know for a fact I have a 10 o'clock class on Friday. Dr. Chitola has a 10 o'clock class. I think Dr. Zagorchev, they're coming, one of the sessions is your 11 o'clock, and Mr. Fazio, your 11 and 12. You've got two. So I know here in business, we're hosting several of the symposiums as well as across campus. So I encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity because, like Mr. Bailey, these people have a wealth of information and can provide you with that, and also show you that, yeah, they were in these seats and look how successful they are. So you have a very successful future also. So thank you again. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for this. That's very nice.
It was really interesting and some technology for you.
Hey, technology. Thank you.
And he's got all kinds of information. Please.
And I'll stay and talk to you.